And thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today we have Naz Pankey on our channel today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, well, I am a mother. I'm a screenwriter. I'm a woman of God and of great faith. I really believe in the Lord. I was born in the Bronx, born in Manhattan, but raised in the South Bronx. And I moved to Georgia about almost 10 years ago, I want to say. I am a filmmaker. I'm a content creator, and I specialize in doing everything from conception to completion when it comes to film. I'm also I'm a storyteller, so I'm also a writer as well. I love telling stories, but I like telling certain stories that I feel that are going to change people's lives. I'm a gritty writer, but I've become a writer as well. I just did a web series and it's a comedy. So I guess I can't put any limitations on myself or any limitations on God, but that's who I am. And it's really great to be here today. I'm also a survivor. I'm a survivor of child abuse. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I am a survivor of homelessness. I've just been so many places and just been through so many things. And that's why my faith in God is so strong.
Well, I don't know how I connected with you, but I had a Eventbrite, I think it's called.
Yes.
And it was your I guess your book launch or your question and answer. I don't know how I got connected with you, but I clicked on the button, boom. I was like, oh, I got to interview her. I got to interview her. Her story is amazing, and that trailer, OMG, I loved it.
Thank you.
I loved it. And does that trailer go with the book?
Yes, it does. And I have two trailers. So I'm wondering which one is it that you watched, the trailer.
The little girl in it. The lady was walking through like woods and she fell.
Oh, yes, that's Rosalind Smith. Oh my God, yes. And the little girl, her name is Eloise Hunt. And Rosalind Smith Patterson, they're both amazing actresses. They went above and beyond for the virtual book writing experience. It was just amazing. Rosalind, she literally did all of her makeup. She did wardrobe because there wasn't any money in the budget for all of that. And she went out and she called me every day. She just wanted to know what did I want her to wear. She wanted to know about the character. She actually spoke to my mother on the phone. So she went above and beyond to bring that character to life. Eloise, I've been working with Eloise for the past few years. She's a brilliant actress. She memorizes her lines. She gets into her character. She has her mom is amazing. Her mom is very supportive. So I was really blessed. I had a great cast it's called Through the Looking Glass. And that was just a short story based on the book.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, tell us about your book, Evergreen Uprooted.
Evergreen Uprooted. Okay, I'll tell you about the book, and if you want to, I'll tell you how I got into it. Which one do you want first? How I wrote it?
Yes. How you wrote it?
How I went about writing it?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, let's go into that story. Okay, so I called myself going to college. I was working 3 jobs. And I couldn't work any of those 3 jobs because I broke my wrist. And when I broke my wrist, at this time, my children I have 2 sons. They were kids at the time. They were really young. And I was working 3 jobs, so I never got a chance to see them. I was dropping them off at daycare during the day, and in the evening they were staying with the babysitter down the hall. And I was just working, and I was paying bills, and I was like, I'm not getting on no social services. I'm doing this thing. And the reason why is because I grew up on welfare. I grew up on food stamps, so I figured I'm doing everything different. And so I was killing myself. And the thing about it is I wasn't spending any time with my kids. So one day I went to pick up my son from daycare, and he ran out of the school ahead of me. And at this time, he's like probably 3.5, 4 years old. He runs out of the school ahead of me, and all I could think, oh my God, there's cars out there. So I went to run after him, and instead of me pulling the door open, I was trying to get to him. I pushed the door with all my might, and I broke my own wrist. So when I broke my wrist, I could not work any of the jobs that I had been working because all the jobs required me to use my hand. So now I had to sit home with my kids. I was collecting some unemployment, some insurance. I had to get some food stamps, and I was home with and then life seemed to be easier for me when I wasn't making as much money, and I couldn't wrap my head around that. Like, there wasn't any help for the middle class. I was able to get assistance and spend time with my children, and they was getting to know me, and I was getting to know them, even though they were my kids, and it was just phenomenal. And then I had this woman just kept telling me, you got to go to school. You got to go to school. You need to get a degree so you can work one job and be with your children. And I kept telling her, no, I'm not going to school. School is not for me. I don't do school. That was my attitude. And she kept talking about it. And then, of course, you know, it was just like, okay, well, if you want this benefit, you got to do this and you got to do that. And I said, you know what, maybe I will give school a try. So I went to school. I took the placement test. I couldn't pass. My reading was on the level of a third grader. And the counselor couldn't understand it. He said, I have never seen anything like this in my life. Like, I see you have a high school diploma, but you can barely read, and I don't understand it. So I was borderline illiterate. I knew I couldn't read well, but I had been living with that, and I had been hiding that. And because I grew up in the Bronx, in the street, I knew how to get around that, and I knew how to survive. And now, you know, it's like smack dead in my face. Okay, you can barely read. We can't put you in college classes because you get college level books, and you need to be able to read it. So they put me in remedial reading, which was at the lowest level in reading. And I was angry. I was mad. I was a fighting person. At that time, I was a suicidal person. I didn't care about life. I didn't care about losing my life. I had very low self-esteem. I wasn't the type of girl who loved attention. I didn't like guys to whistle at me or tell me I was gorgeous. That made me feel uncomfortable because I was dealing with a lot of self-hatred and just a lot of stuff that had been put on me throughout my life that nobody knew because I didn't probably look like it, but I had a lot of stuff going on inside. So anyway, I'm in this class, and my professor, he wrote a book about how to navigate through school around in college. So I said, well, maybe that's what God wants me to do, write a book about my life. But prior to me coming to the decision to write this book, I had flipped out on this girl at college. She didn't do anything to me. She just took my parking spot, didn't see me, but in my head, I felt she saw me waiting for the spot. And I just called her every derogatory name known to man and the devil, every name. And she thought I was crazy, pulled out of my spot. I pulled in, I saw her later, and I felt so bad because I had just went to church, and I apologized to her. And that's when she told me, she said, Miss, I didn't even see you. And I was like, wow, something's wrong with me. Why am I so mad? Why am I so angry? And I prayed. I was like, God, I'm tired. Like, I'm just tired of being mad. I'm tired of being angry. I'm tired of hating myself. I just want you to come into my life and help me and take it away. And I just want to be normal. And I prayed, and I heard God say, okay, work for me, strive for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to work for God because I have a strong belief in Jesus. And I said, whatever I do, I just want to be excellent at it. So I had started going to my classes, and I was taking all remedial everything. And I decided that I was going to work hard and just give it my best. Even though I didn't believe I could do school, I was like, I'm going to give it my best. And what I read my first book in college called Flowers for Algernon, and then I read Makes Me Wanna Holler. Those are the first two books I read. And I would just write all the time. And I loved it. And I never knew my love and my passion for writing because I wasn't a reader. So once I started reading, I just could not stop writing. And I would go and write something down, and I would take it, and my professor would make changes. And I loved when he said, oh, fix this, correct that. And everybody would be mad. And I'd be like, yes, more writing. And I would write. Then I would go to the writing lab afterwards and sit in the writing lab and write. So when he wrote this book on how to get around in college, I was like, oh, maybe this is what God wants me to do, because all this stuff that went down, it doesn't make sense. I got to make sense of it, you know? And so I started to write my book, Evergreen Uprooted. And it was so amazing because I was able to write my story as a woman and reflect on what I went through as a child, but see it through an adult's point of view, because a lot of those beliefs that was forced on me was not true. The things that I was called was not true. The things that I was told about myself was not true. And I never went back to visit that. So when I started writing a book, I was able to go back and visit that and heal from that. And I did very well in school. I graduated, at the top of my class, 3.98 GPA. I graduated. I realized that I wasn't dumb. I wasn't stupid. I just didn't have a lot of opportunity that other people had. So this is how my book came about, Evergreen Uprooted, Memoirs of Secret.
Okay. Now tell us about the book.
Okay, so the book is about my childhood growing up in the South Bronx during the crack epidemic. And it's really about the relationship between me and my mom, my sisters, my family, going to school, what was that like, love life, everything about my childhood. So I open up, of course, my first chapter, but you don't know what my first chapter is about. The most impactful thing I remember happening to me that was life-changing. And that's when my mother offered me to smoke crack, and I was 9 years old. That was one of the things, but the biggest thing that I remember is waking up one night in the middle of the night and my mother wasn't home. And I used to sneak in her room at night, and I went in her room and I looked around and she wasn't there. And I waited for her. I sat in the middle of the bed, Indian style, and I just sat there in the dark and I waited for her to come home. And I waited so long until I fell asleep. And then I woke up, she was just pacing the room. And we were really tight then. And she lied next to me and she told me, she says, hey, she was like, I'm just going to use the character's name in the book. I don't want to use a real person's name, even though he's deceased. But she was like, Buck gave me something and I don't know if I should do it. And I was like, oh, she's like, well, I kind of didn't like it. I said, well, if you didn't like it, then don't do it. She says, well, it did make me feel good. I said, well, if it makes you feel good, mommy, you should do it. And that was crack. And she got up that night. And that was just like my whole world turned upside down after that. So she's on this crack. She's on heroin. She's drinking all the time, the cigarettes. My mom's a completely different person. And I'm in denial. I'm like, oh no, she's going to be back. Because she was such a great mom. I mean, she took such good care of me and my sisters. I'm like, oh no, she'll be back. This is not happening. I'm in denial. And that day in the stairwell was a day that my stepdad, she had been gone for 3 days. And every time she would disappear, I would pray because I was always scared she wouldn't come back. And I was praying, God, please let her be okay. And when she came home with nothing. She had spent all the welfare money, cashed in all the food stamps, turned in all her WIC checks. She did everything she could for the crack. And so when she came home, my stepdad was like, where you been? Where's the money? And started arguing. Well, he started really yelling at her. And I remember just being afraid. I knew he was going to hit her because he was very abusive. But as a kid, we couldn't do anything to help her. We couldn't do anything to stop it. All I could do was try to hold my sisters in the room because they were like, mommy, and just happy to see her, but also afraid for her at the same time. And I didn't want them to run out into the hallway, into the situation, because I knew he would have knocked them out. So I was trying to protect them because I knew I couldn't protect my mother. And I remember he punched her in the face. She fell to the floor. She was holding her jaw, all her belongings out. Her pocketbook was on the floor everywhere. And she ran out of the house and she was in the hallway. And when she was in the hallway, I went to check on her. And that's when she was making a homemade pipe from a hug juice, which was a juice famous to children. She's making this homemade pipe. And we were talking and everything normal. And I was telling her I looked out for the kids, my sisters. And she was like, I know you're my oldest. I can depend on you and such and such and such. And then she took a hit of that crack and she changed into a zombie. She changed into a different person right before my face. It was unbelievable. But then what was even more unbelievable is when she actually moved the pipe towards me and offered me a hit. And I was shocked. Because I knew she was going, but I didn't know she was gone. It's like I saw it happening, but I guess I hadn't come to terms with it at the time. I couldn't accept it. Mm-hmm. And when she offered me that hit of crack, that's when I knew. I was like, wow. And I actually was seeing her transform and trying to convince me that crack was good. And at that age, I knew to say no because I saw what it was doing to her. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, mommy, I don't want to. I don't want to do it. And I kept saying no. And then she took her a few more hits and she was a different person, and she just walked off, like spaced out, just walked off. And I knew at that moment that my life would never be the same, that I had to step up, that I had to protect my sisters, because that's what she always taught me. You the oldest. So I felt like, well, I'm the oldest. I told her to use crack. I got to step up. And that's a lot of the reasons why I missed school, because I had a sister that was a year and 4 months younger than me, and she went to school every day. But I just felt like I can't go to school. I can't leave my little sisters here, because I knew that my mother I knew she offered me to smoke crack. I knew she would walk out. I knew she would leave them. I knew that they really wouldn't be safe with her. And I hate to say that, because my mother, she's a great mom, but the drugs. So that's the part. That's how I actually start my book in my first chapter. And I go on to talk about the neighborhood, of course, and talk about my siblings, my upbringing, my grandparents, just a bunch of stuff, being in crack houses, going through bullying. What was it like being raised in the Bronx, in the 80s and the 90s? What was it really like? And it was tough. You had to, whether you was a kid who liked to fight or not, you had to fight.
Yes.
You had to fight in school. There was no such thing as, oh, you never had a fight. Oh, you in the Bronx? Yeah, you have to fight, and now, especially in the South Bronx, my school that I went to, all the schools in the South Bronx, I had to fight, and I fought almost every day. I can't tell you the number of fights I had, because that's how many fights I had. If I wasn't fighting to protect myself, I was fighting to protect my sisters when I did go to school, which wasn't often.
Mm-hmm. What is your genre, and what attracts you to this genre?
My genre is drama. I like gritty drama. I like raw, gritty drama. I guess because that's my life. I grew up gritty. That's how I grew up. I grew up fighting. I grew up around drugs. I grew up around gangsters. I grew up around thugs. I grew up, with the block parties and the music loud and hanging out in the street all night long. And I was able to do whatever I wanted to do at that age. I didn't have a mom that said, hey, you got to be home at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. I was 9, 10 years old. I was outside to 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Curfew, what's that? Riding the trains, what? I'm gonna hop the train, go wherever I want to go. That's how I grew up. So I know that, there's two kinds of people write really what they know and what they feel comfortable with. I don't mind writing about the grit. I like to write stories about overcomers, because I'm an overcomer. So I don't mind writing a story about domestic violence. I have a documentary called RAPE, Recovering After Post-Traumatic Experience. And it's actually a story about my mom, who was held at knife point and raped and held hostage overnight in the building and raped. So I don't mind telling stories like that, because it's happening, and it's my stories. I want to say it might not be for everyone, but I have my audience, and there are people who have experienced the stuff that I have, people who have been raped. I've been raped. I've been sexually abused as a child. I've been through domestic violence several times. I've been homeless. So there are people who've been through all those different type of walks in life, and they can relate to the story, and it also helps them, I guess, understand that they're not alone. It's not just happening to you. And that's very important for people to know. It's not just happening to you. There's nothing that you did, because there's a lot of victim shaming, and feel ashamed and feel embarrassed about what somebody else did to you. And I don't want women or men to be ashamed and embarrassed about what somebody else did to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk about it, and I talk about it freely, and I don't, and I'm unapologetic for doing it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What does the title mean? Evergreen Uprooted.
Evergreen Uprooted. So evergreen is a tree that remains green all year long. The evergreen tree. I mean, it's an all season tree. It never loses its leaves. If it turns brown, loses its leaves, it's dead. But it remains green all year long. The block I grew up on was Evergreen. So I thought it was a great title for the book, Evergreen. And it's about this kid that's uprooted from her childhood, that's uprooted from her life as she knows it, and has to survive. So that's where Evergreen Uprooted comes from. But you
Okay.
know what she does? She survives it, you know, like an evergreen tree. Even when you go through the storm, you know, you go through tornadoes and um, all kind of life beats you down like it beats that evergreen tree. That evergreen tree still stands and remains green. And I feel like with all the things that I've overcame, I'm still who God created me to be. I'm still that wonderful, good-hearted child today. I still have my heart. I didn't let uh, the cruelness of the world change who God created me to be. I didn't let the devil win. And a lot of people do that. They go through stuff and they change. I'm not letting the devil win. I'm gonna be who God created me to be.
Okay. Can you tell us about the cover?
Oh, yes, indeed. So this is a young girl. And if you look in the back of the book, you can see kind of like the graffiti on the wall for
Mhm.
Evergreen. You can see there's a scripture, well, thou shalt not kill. And there's the cards of the Joker and the playing cards. So in my book, I have a part where I talk about the block, and I talk about how one of the bodegas on my block had a portrait of a madman, and he reminded me of the Joker from a deck of cards. So you can see the madman like a deck of cards here. His teeth is a deck of cards, and people are in the back, and they're kind of strung out on heroin and drugs, and there's drugs and there's dirt and there's garbage, and it's like this dark place. And then you see this girl at the bottom,
Mhm.
and she's planting a tree right here. She's bringing life.
Okay.
She's life and all this darkness around her.
Got it. Got it.
Mhm.
What inspired you to write this book?
Really, I want to say at first it was my professor who wrote a book about how to get around in college. So my professor inspired me, and then from him I started writing, and I think what it did to me as I was writing, the understanding, I changed when I wrote this book. I wasn't as angry. And I began to forgive myself because I was walking around believing all the things that people had said about me. All the teachers that told me I was stupid, I was dumb, I couldn't make it. I had teachers tell me that. All the names that I had been called from my mother and my stepfather, and the fighting, and just the things that I was taught about myself as I began to write. Because when you write, you use all your senses. You use what you see, what you hear, your taste, your smell, the touch. You use so many. You have to go back in that story and bring it all. It's like you reliving it all over again as you're writing. And I was able to really see that stuff is not true. And that was the most impactful thing about writing this book. And that's what helped me to keep going, because I was able to go back and relive that stuff and really see things for what it was, instead of seeing it through a kid's eyes, and I want to say unlearn those beliefs.
Mhm.
Yeah, unlearn those beliefs. And when I unlearned those beliefs, it was like that was it. It's like the heavens open, the sky open, and God just said, okay, I got you now. There's nothing holding you back. I need you to believe in yourself because I believe in you. I need you to see yourself through my eyes because I got you. There's nothing that's going to hold you back. And there's nothing and nobody that will hold me back, because that's just how I'm built. I'm built different. I'm cut from a different cloth because of the things that I've been through. So yeah, I might get my feelings hurt, but I'm really hard to break, because I know who my God is. I know who I serve, and I know that with God, all things is possible. I'm humble, and I believe that, and I trust that. So I don't look to man to do anything for me. I don't look to man to make a way for me, because God will make my way, and God will send the right people my way. That's what I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you share a snippet from your book?
Sure. Do you want me to share the part about the hallway scene with the crack, or do you want me to share something else? Being I talked about the crack scene.
The one with the cover of it.
Oh, okay. The neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay, I'll share that one. Okay. So I grew up in the birthplace of hip hop music and culture, the Bronx, New York. During the early 80s, I lived in the South Bronx on Evergreen Avenue, right off Westchester Ave. Above the street sign Evergreen was a number 6 train line. It seemed like all the bodegas, corner stores, as those in the neighborhood called them, were in competition. The bodega that was located across the street from my building, right at the corner, had neon lights that read Lotto. Across the street was another store with the words grocery store written in graffiti. Parallel to that was another store that contained very few groceries. Stores such as those were usually cover-ups for drug trafficking. And the next block over, there was yet another bodega, which had a portrait of a madman sprayed on the face of his building. The picture reminded me of the Joker and a deck of playing cards. The South Bronx was home to many underprivileged people. Pools, parks, and community centers were non-existent in my hood. So for the people living there, especially the poor, it was all about finding ways to laugh and have fun. In the summer, we look forward to opening the fire hydrant. We called it the pump. We flooded the streets with water. No one cared if the pump to was supposed to be used to put out fires. The young boys wore ripped jeans turned into shorts and were shirtless, revealing their skinny, hairless chests. They made a hole by cutting off 2 ends of a soup can and attaching the remaining cylinder on water. They used it to spray their vehicles as they drove by. We called it the car wash. The OGs, original gangsters, respected men of the community who sold illegal drugs and made a lot of money, drove through my block in expensive SUVs and luxury cars, blasting the latest hip hop songs with smiles on their faces. Everything about an OG was glamorous, from the fresh wax paint on their vehicles to the $1,000 rims and tinted windows and leather interior, to the tailor-made suits worn by shoes that shine bright in Mr. Clean's bald head. I watched the OGs lean back, nod their head to the music, and roll their tinted windows up for the car wash. One by one, they slowly drove by and watched the excitement on the young boys' faces as they sprayed the water. The water looked like diamonds rolling off their vehicles. Imagine that, diamonds in the hood. It was like a scene from the movie Cinderella, unrealistic but not impossible. Every young boy that was living in poverty wanted to be an OG someday, and every girl wanted to marry one. Judging by the satisfied looks on the OG's eyes, giving the young boys something to do made them feel justified about polluting the streets with drugs.
Wow.
I can go on.
Wow. Okay. What is the key theme and or message in your book?
You can overcome anything with God, that God is real. Because my mother, and this to me is huge, I would pray all the time, help to God to help my mother. And at one time I started feeling like, nah, she's on too much stuff. Like she literally was on heroin, but she was taking methadone so she wouldn't get sick when she couldn't take the heroin. But then she would sell her methadone over the weekend and use the heroin. She was on heroin and methadone, crack, alcohol, cigarettes. Then she was on all type of Valiums and pills because she had fell through a window. She had flew through the window of a van. It was a bad accident. So she was on all type of pills. And I was like, wow, she's messed up. You know, it was living my life every day, not knowing if she was going to live or if she was going to die. That's how I lived as a kid, not knowing when my mother was, just feeling like, wow, it's only a matter of time. And we got put in foster care at a certain age, and this is in the book, whatever. I don't want to give too much away. Mm-hmm. But long story short, she went into a rehab to get her life together. But the rehab, only one that she can get into was this Christian-based rehab. And they made her go to church every day. And my mother was not no church-going woman. Mm-hmm. They made her go to church every single day. And, you know, I mean, before she could eat, she had to go to morning devotional before breakfast, you know. And then, so she went several times a day. And when she got out the program, like within that first day, she relapsed and was back on drugs. And she told me that she just cried out at this time. She said, God, I can't do this. I'm tired. Please help me. Please come into my life. Take this away from me. And she was instantly delivered. Instantly. She went to 8 different crack houses right after that. And everybody was smoking from the same pipe and getting high. She couldn't get high. The first one she went to, she thought, hey, they beat me. They're playing with me. This is not crack. They beating me. So she went to 8 different ones because she wanted to still get high with the crack, and she could not get high. She drank alcohol. She got sick. She stopped smoking. She literally instantly in the same day quit it all. So something like that, I'm like, okay, God is real. God is real, because I know people who go to, and then after she got off the drugs, she did go to like the NA meetings and things like that for a while, but she's been clean for over 28 years, going on 29 years. And so that's how I know how real God is. That's how I know that people can overcome challenges. They can overcome hard times. And I want people to find their reason and find their purpose. Because I know I walked around for many years without purpose. I wasn't reading. I didn't know how much I loved to write. I didn't know how much I loved to create stories. I didn't know how much I would love filmmaking, because I could read. So I want people to find their purpose, find your passion. And I want people to live in that purpose and live and walk in that passion, because that's life and that's love. And I know what it is to not have that, and just have faith and believe that God can do all things. Yes.
What do you want readers to take away from this book?
God can do all things. Have faith. I want them to take away from that. You can overcome anything. And again, I don't want people to walk around being ashamed. I'm tired of that. And I want to say, especially victim shaming, it comes from within the family, especially the Black family. What happens in the house stays in the house. Hell no. Hell no. Because if something's happening in the house that shouldn't be happening in the house, it needs to come out and be exposed. No child should have to live through what I lived through. No child should have to go through that. No child should have to be abused I was abused by my stepfather, and then turned around and had my cousin, who I looked up to and I loved, she abused me. And I have family members that are protecting her. And, and it's just get over it. You're not over it yet. Because they don't want to talk about it. It's not the fact that I'm over it, it's the fact that I'm not going to not talk about it. I'm not going to allow somebody to say something's a lie. That's the truth, And in this particular family member, she abused me and two of my siblings. Why? Because mother was on crack, and she knew she could do it and get away with it. And a lot of families, that's what they do. They try to cover up and sweep things under the rug. And it's like, no, I don't want people to feel like, and then the victim has to walk around living in shame. No. So I don't want people to live in shame. I want people to be free. Talk about it. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't be ashamed of somebody else's cruelty and evilness.
What avenues are you using to promote your book?
Social media. I just had a virtual book signing experience. It was really amazing. It was my first one. I definitely want to do another, have another screening of it, but pretty much just like social media, word of mouth. I haven't had a lot of book signings, and I want to get into that. Just so if anybody knows anything, just let me know. I'm new to the world of books. So I'm new. Well, not the world. Well, I would say I'm new, because I was like in my early 30s, So yeah, I'm new to all of this. But the virtual book signing was amazing. I really loved it, and I want to continue to do. I want to do more. Like, I just want to come on maybe and just have, like what I did today, just read some excerpts from the book. I would love to do that.
Okay. What did you learn when writing this book?
That I can do it. I think that's what I learned. I unlearned learned beliefs and behaviors. I learned that I can write, that I love to write, and I also learned that what I have to say, people want to hear. So I have something, and it's not the book, it's the story that's within me and the things that I've overcome. People want to hear about it. And that's what I learned, and that this story inspires people. So, yeah.
What is beast mode entertainment?
You know how you go beast mode when you're working out, you nonstop and nothing can stop you, nothing can hold you back. That's what Beast Mode Entertainment is. Beast Mode Entertainment is nothing can hold you back when you want to do something. You can't let anything, you can't let not having money. For my virtual book signing experience, I had no money. But you know what? When you look at it, you would never know. I had a nice opening sequence with the actors. Then afterwards, I came in, I spoke to the audience. I was the host. And then, of course, I went on ahead. We had a book giveaway. Then we had a whole entire docudrama. Then I came back and read some excerpts and stuff. This was on no budget. So that's what Beast Mode is. Beast Mode is we get it done no matter what. That's what it's all about, creating, and you can't let anyone stop you. You have to just keep doing it. You have to go. And sometimes you create, and I notice like now it's a competition thing with a lot of people. For me, it's not. Everything's not going to be perfect. Everything's not going to be always perfect. But you know what? You have to get out there and create and do it and make mistakes and learn from your mistakes and keep growing, and don't let anyone stop you. Don't let anything stop you. So that's Beast Mode.
Okay. What do you like to do when you're not writing?
Chill, eat. I do, honestly. When I'm not writing, I mean, I love filmmaking. I love producing. I love planning productions and stuff like that. I love just relaxing when I'm not writing, really relaxing, resting.
Mm-hmm.
I love going out to restaurants, nice restaurants, eating good food. Having great conversations with my friends, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But most of my time is spent on film and writing. Really, majority of my time is spent on that.
Okay. What do you think makes a good story?
Content. I think the content makes a good story. I think what it is, what is the story about, and how does this story, how is your story going to reach an audience and impact an audience? So I think the content is very, very important. I think that's what makes a good story. Really great content that can touch and impact an audience that people can relate to. And even if they can't relate to it, it's so mind-blowing that they're like, wow, I don't know about this, but I want to watch it because I'm learning a lot about what I don't know. So I think that's very important.
Okay. What is your testimony?
Oh, my testimony is I'm here in my right mind. I always told, when I was 9 years old, my mother offered me to smoke crack. By the time I was 10, I had missed almost 100 days of school. At 11 years old, I was sexually abused by my stepfather. Okay, my case went from criminal court to Supreme Court, and then he was acquitted, and that's another long story. And then by the time I was 12, I was sexually abused again by my cousin, my female cousin, my mother's brother's daughter. And then from there, when I was 13 years old, I was put in foster care. I had to fight all through school. I had to fight through my life. I've overcome homelessness. I've overcome domestic violence. I'm talking about, I'm not knocking nobody who's been through domestic violence, because don't get me wrong, verbal, or I'm talking about life-threatening domestic violence. I'm not knocking anybody who's been through anything that's not life-threatening, but I've overcome that. And what I mean by overcome that, I'm here. I'm still alive. And as long as I'm alive, I feel like I'm alive for a reason. I'm here for a reason. I've went through those things so that I can help other people come out of it. And I have a passion for that. And that's what I do through my storytelling. That's my testimony.
Okay. What are you currently working on right now?
I am producing right now. I'm actually producing a short film that I didn't write. I'm producing for a few clients. So I have a short film I'm producing. I have a TV pilot I am producing. So the short film I'm actually producing and directing. The TV pilot I'm producing. And then I have a feature that I'm producing and directing, all before the end of this year.
Wow. Can you talk about any of those in more detail?
I can't, because it's not my content. If it was my content, I would, but it's someone else's content. So I just want to respect their privacy. Yeah. But they're all really powerful, impacting story. One is a comedy. The pilot is a comedy, kind of like a comedy show, and the other two stories are dramas. Very dramatic.
What is something you want readers to know about you?
I feel like people feel every time when I talk, because I am talkative, as you see, I don't mind. People look at me as an extrovert, but I'm actually an introvert. I can do this, but I can't do too much of it. I'm an introvert. So what I mean by if I do too much of the talking and the people thing, I get drained. I feel drained. Where some people can go on and on and on. So I want people to know that about me. Yep, I'm an introvert. I'm okay. I guess for me, I don't know if I was naturally an introvert, but I spent so much of my life alone, with just my siblings, home watching TV. I used to watch all the soaps, All My Children, One Life to Live, As the World Turns, all of them. And then I began to watch The Young and the Restless. I'm that person, that just was home a lot, watching TV, never liked watching cartoons. So that's who I am. I'm okay with being by myself, and I'm the kind of person where I usually I have about 2 or 3 friends, and that's it. I'm not a person that really welcomes a whole lot of friendships in my life. Circle is very small, but I do love all people. I do love people. I can get out and smile and talk to people, but I don't do too much of it. And I don't think people realize that about me. People just feel like, oh, Naz is an extrovert. No, I do network and I do socialize, but not too much.
Okay. How can readers find you and your book?
Oh my goodness, they can go to www.nazpankey.com. So that's www.nazpankey.com. They can also find me on Facebook, Naz Pankey, on Instagram as beastmode_Naz.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
I just want to say thank you for having me on your show. Thank you, and for allowing me to share my book. Also, you can get my book from my website, but you can also go straight to Amazon.com and type in Evergreen Uprooted. This is the book cover. Okay, it's Evergreen Uprooted, Memoirs of Secret, and you can type that in and get my book. It's in Kindle and it's also in paperback on Amazon.
All right, thank you. Again, this is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.